In today's video, we talked to John McMillin, the author of CSTORE Secrets, about everything C-store owners need to do to succeed.
Hey everyone, welcome back to The Rundown. This episode is not sponsored by anyone, but I do want to mention Castrol just sent me a dozen Pro V1s, and we will welcome that from anybody for next episode. This episode is going to be a good one, and excited for you guys to listen to it.
Our topic for this rundown is the U.S. C-store count declines for the third year in a row. The industry sees more than a 3% decrease in the number of single store operators. For example, there's been a 1.6% decrease in the number of stores in 2019, making the total 150,000 stores. And with the decrease of locations, there's also been a slight decrease of 0.4% of fuel. Despite the third straight yearly decline in stores, the overall C-store count has increased by 2.7% during the past decade. So with online shopping and all the other trends that the pandemic started, it will continue to reshape consumer shopping routines.
On that note, we have some ways that C-store owners can actually avoid that fate. On this month's episode, our guest is John McMillin. John has a really well-rounded background in the C-store industry, holding a variety of positions in the industry over the past several years. Currently, he is the business developer for PFS Brands, and he is the author of this book, C-STORE Secrets. We had the opportunity to pick John's brain yesterday and really dove into tangible action steps that independent C-store owners can start implementing today in order to attract more customers, maximize profits, and compete with large chains. Just to preface, we did have this conversation virtually yesterday, so of course it doesn't come without any technical issues. So just so you know, the video does freeze up a little bit. However, the audio is crystal clear, so you'll have no problem hearing exactly what John had to say in his interview. Without further ado, let's see what John had to say about simple strategies for operating a wildly successful C-store.
John, thank you for being here. We're happy to have you. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. Thanks for having me.
John, just to jump right in, we're going to review your book a little bit, but can you tell us a bit about yourself? Tell everybody else about yourself.
Yeah, so I've been in the C-store industry for pretty much going on 20 years at this point, and it's kind of been a huge passion of mine, so I was definitely excited to get on with you guys. I know it's something that you guys are focused on as well, and share my opinion and just get more information out into the marketplace to help just the C-store industry as a whole and C-store operators individually. Been in sales, I've been in delivery, I've been in warehouses, I've done pretty much anything you can think of in relation to servicing convenience stores for pretty much half my life.
What are some of your former companies, John?
So I've worked with a couple different distributors, C-store distributors, all great companies. Obviously, I left for opportunity. Worked in the food service industry. I'm currently working with PFS Brands, which, just to be quite honest, not because I work for them, but they're one of my favorite companies that I've ever worked for just because of the culture of the business and the culture of this company. And prior to that, delivery. I've delivered ice. I've delivered to the C-stores. I've done a lot of different things.
Yeah, I think I could tell just from your book and from working for PFS Brands, you're entrepreneurial. You like to help convenience stores. So you got a real passion for kind of probably making success and having the evidence of it, right? And getting to enjoy the evidence of it.
Yep.
So what made you decide to write the book?
So I started into sales in the convenience store distribution side around 2007, and so I've been working closely with C-store owners for a long time. And throughout the last 13 years especially, there have been some observations that I've made. I'm in and out of convenience stores all day long. It could be anywhere from 10, 20, 30 C-stores, just depending on what kind of day I'm having. And I've been able to notice that some of the most successful C-stores are doing these things, and some of the least successful C-stores are doing these things over here. And I've always thought, people can be a little guarded. And I said, how can I get these people information without calling anybody out, but give them exactly the difference that I observed in these two different scenarios with a less successful C-store and a more successful C-store without hurting their feelings, and just throw that information at them and say, here you go, here's what these guys are doing. Take a look at it and see what you can do in your C-store to grow your business.
John, do you ever walk into a store and you recognize kind of all these things that are not going so well, and rather than having that awkward kind of confrontational banter, do you just say like, hey, I think you should read this?
There are times. I've got a case of these books in my car, and so being in the marketplace every day, sometimes I don't even have to walk into the store. I can pull up to a stoplight and look over, and it's like they could really use some help, some advice. And so sometimes they might not necessarily be a customer of mine or even a potential customer, but I do like to drop that book off and say, hey, I wrote this book. I love the C-store industry. Check it out. See if there's a couple things that might help you grow your business. Very passive aggressive, I guess, if you will. But again, I want to be honest. I don't want to hurt their feelings.
Yeah, no, that's a great way of putting it. And for everyone who's interested, just so you know, it's a super simple read. I think each of us read it in about an hour and a half, and it keeps your attention throughout because it's thought-provoking. It's simple, but a lot of things are simple. Losing weight is simple, right? The concept of it is simple. Deciding to actually stick with that stuff is hard. But I can see, convenience stores are often, not real receptive and guarded, as you mentioned. And the moment you kind of come off as like attacking their current business, they really shut down, right? So I think it's a good way to qualify yourself, and also a way to keep it cordial. Keep it cordial.
Yeah.
But
imagine somebody walking into your house and they're like, gosh, man, you could move all this stuff around and just make your house so much better. It's kind of offensive. So if you find a tactful way to do it, it definitely helps.
That's right. Well, let's talk a little bit about it, John. Right off the start, after we get past kind of the recommendation from your friend there, you talk about the restrooms, and I agree fully. But in the book, you say, you got to have clean restrooms. And you also talk about the lock and key scenario and customers only. And so why don't you just elaborate on that a little bit for people who haven't read the book yet?
So I struggled a little bit with where to start in the book. I've done a lot of polls. I've asked a lot of customers I say customers, potential customers, friends on Facebook and just different areas. What's the one thing that would cause you never to go back to a C-store? Because that seemed like a very important question, and that their customers would tell the C-store owners that tells them exactly what they need to fix. And so I decided to go with restrooms because even in talking to other people, it was that one thing that came up every single time. There's a lot of moms out there, when they're traveling, they want a good, safe, secure, and clean place to go. And if you don't keep that restroom open and accessible, essentially you're actually failing on customer service. I mean, most people stop at a C-store to use the restroom. It's just a fact. You go on vacation, you got kids in the back seat screaming and throwing things, your wife's, reading a book or doing whatever, trying to be quiet, trying to have some peace as you head to vacation. All of a sudden somebody's got to go to the restroom. What do? You look for a convenience store. You're going to get other items as well, but I can't tell you how many times I've traveled down the interstate even as a person. My wife stopped real quick. I even hated to let her get out of the car and go into some places, but she's got to go to the restroom, and when she comes back to the car, the first thing she'll say is either, that was a good place, or don't ever stop at this exit in this C-store again. And it's because of the restroom. It didn't have anything to do with anything. If they were friendly to her, don't ever stop here again. And it's because of those restrooms.
Yeah, it's obviously you're probably like me where we stop in a lot of stores and we stop in some of the non-traditional places most people would search for, just because we like to get off the beaten path and see some alternative stores. But when I'm traveling with my wife, I have to think about her, and I think about, okay, I got to make sure I stop at a place with clean restrooms so she doesn't get mad at me. But she will comment on the same thing. And when I talked about it with Layla and Cassidy here, and what about you guys? Did you stop somewhere without clean restrooms?
I usually try to stop at convenience stores where I know they're clean. convenience stores that I've been to before, if I have to stop, like if I'm traveling or something like that, I try to find one like a Wawa or a Sheetz or 7-Eleven. Yeah, mostly. Yeah. That's really it though.
Right.
So you've associated brand names with clean restrooms, right?
I have. Yeah.
Yep. That's what customers do, and you're a customer.
And it's exactly what you said as well, John, that you kind of get an idea in your head. If you stop at one, you have a bad experience, you will never go either to that name again, that area again. Potentially you will make a point to not stop at that one. We've had this conversation a couple times. I think part of the problem too is for women, in most cases we have more contact with the toilet seat than men do. So it's extra important for us, but yes, it could give you a bad impression and just ruin that forever for you.
That's a very good point.
Yeah. And in the book, you mentioned the customer feeling obligated to buy something for using the restroom. I think that's very true as well. But, what would happen if you had a bad experience in there? You'd probably be like, they don't deserve my business because of that dirty bathroom.
Right.
So, yeah, very, very important. Also, maybe beef up your toilet paper a little bit, right? We need something more than single ply, right? Make people more comfortable. Give them some.
Absolutely.
Don't run out of soap in the bathroom. That's the worst. If you don't have soap or don't have paper towels, then you just feel disgusting. Especially this day and age with COVID, everyone's a little bit more sensitive to sanitation process.
And you alluded to something very important there. I don't know if you guys have ever been to Disney World in Florida, but they actually control the smells in different areas. And it's because they are creating that experience. And same thing with restrooms. I mean, when somebody walks into the restroom, that smell is going to tell a lot of things too. And something like the toilet paper, those little details can change your business if you'll focus on them a little bit and stop worrying so much about those couple pennies.
That's right. The next thing you mentioned in the book, John, was talking about the forecourts and your outdoor presence and kind of your curb appeal. So I actually love on your Facebook where you talk about the curb appeal. You keep posting some pictures and asking people for their thoughts, and that's where people give some pretty good feedback. But why don't you go ahead and tell us about what you mentioned in the book for that?
So, like we talked about earlier, I kind of struggled with where do I start to guide C-store owners in a certain direction, and that's actually what I told with restrooms or just that outward appearance of the C-store. I mean, at the end of the day, your first impression, what the customer is going to see when they decide, do I stop here or do I not? It is that curb appeal. It is that forward-facing C-store front. And so, if you're going to at least get them in the door, you really have to pay attention to what's on the outside. I've got a picture in the back of the book that is a store, and I actually shared it on Facebook and got comments. It's got signage everywhere. It's covered up everywhere. And, the more you read convenience store news and just all this information out there, even talking to ladies, they want something that looks open, welcoming, well lit, and it just looks and feels safe. And, I know men are a huge, probably customer base in the convenience store industry. There's a lot of women coming in too. And so you've got to find a way with all your strategies and everything you do to appeal to everybody. You can't go wrong with a clean storefront. You can't go wrong. There's no losing situation there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, first impressions are everything, right? And a lot of times if you got the cleanest bathrooms in the world, if you got an ugly storefront, people probably aren't even going to stop there. But, they'll just drive right past, and we've all done it. You mentioned in the book and in your group about not having all the advertisement signs, covering the windows, blocking the light. But also you mentioned having a good signage for your brand. We talked about the well-lit pumps and just clean pumps, clean trash can out there. The one thing we've been chatting about a little bit recently was actually the bucket, the pump at the pump where you can clean your windshield. Very important as well. So, all that stuff just catches your attention and sticks with you. And, these are all simple things that, don't cost, an arm and a leg if just on the tidiness side of it. Layla actually had a real funny experience with the bucket when we were talking about it. Why don't you go ahead and share that?
Yeah, I was actually just telling him this morning. I remember the exact convenience store that it was. My mom wanted to clean her windshield off, with the solvent and the little brush. It smelled, to put it nicely, as though a dog went to the bathroom in the water. Yeah. And I remember the exact convenience store. I hardly ever pick up that brush anymore in any convenience store because I'm just scarred from that experience. It smelled horrendous.
We just got snow actually here in Kentucky, and so that's going to be a very important part with salt trucks and stuff out. And I can't tell you how many times I go to a convenience store, and when you pick that squeegee up, I mean, it literally smells like you pulled it out of the toilet, and the toilet has been used several times. I mean, it's awful. It's obviously the water is stagnated, and I'm not trying to put a plug in here or anything, but that's why I created that C-Store checklist. It's on that list of things that these C-stores can do to serve the customer, and it all comes back to that.
Yeah, and no problem on the plugs. There's a couple of things, right? Just so people know, you got the little washer solvent tablets. You can have a tube of 24. It's 303 that makes them. So you don't have to be dumping full gallons of wash in there. You just mix one of those tablets with a gallon of water and just keep changing it out. It's that stagnant water that creates that smell. Also, obviously in the winter, you might need to add actual windshield washer solvent so it doesn't freeze. We're in Pittsburgh. That's an issue for us. But moving along, John, we talked about friendliness and just welcoming. In the book you talk, I think it's about Chick-fil-A and how friendly they are and their reputation for that. But go ahead and tell us about your opinion of how important this is.
So, I do use Chick-fil-A a lot as an example, and it is because I don't think I've ever been there and had a bad experience, even when they've messed my order up. They're so nice about it that it's like, oh, it's okay, it's no big deal, we can move on, we can move past that. And so, I'm sure they've done some research on there, and there's some strategy within that. But just recently, I've actually visited a couple of C-stores down in Tennessee, and I've been into this one specific C-store, brand new build, probably a $2 to $3 million store with some really good food service and all kinds of really good items in it. Not one time has a person spoke to me anytime I went into that C-store. Good clean restroom. I've stopped there. I've tried to buy stuff because again, I am stopping there and using their facility. So I do want to, natural human tendency. You want to pick something up and it's almost like saying thank you for letting me use your facilities. But I've went across the street a couple times as well. Store's not as new, doesn't offer as good a food service. You can tell they're just not as highly invested as that location, but they're friendly to me every time. It makes me rather go there than go to this brand new, nice built store. And it's just about making that customer feel welcome. When somebody comes to your house, what do you do? Hey, make yourself at home. Do you want something to drink? Is there something I can do for you to make you comfortable? When you create that friendly aura about your business, it's almost like you put your customers in the frame of mind to buy from you. And that's where you want them, right? They're in the C-store, you want to make money. You want them in that frame of mind to do business with you. That's what that friendliness is going to do. And it's going to help them to come back because they're not getting that in other places.
That's right. We have this store in my hometown that has no fuel, not even a nice store, honestly, pretty bad. But the friendliest family running the store, so they stay quite busy. So it's remarkable how easy that is. Free. It's free. And how important. You guys agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, especially if you have a bad experience at one place. Why are you going to go back there? If people weren't friendly, they didn't make an effort with you, they didn't even look up at you when you came into the store.
Right. More times than not, when I walk into a convenience store, no one even acknowledges that I'm there. It's surprising when you walk in and people say like, oh, hi, how are you? You're like, oh, are you talking to me? Like, just because the friendliness isn't always there unless I do go to the ones that I go to frequently. They know who I am. But if you're stopping in as a new customer, they won't even give you a look.
That goes back to that restroom side I talk about in the book too. I mean, if you're just visiting a store for the first time and you walk to the restroom because you have to make a pit stop, And they've got that sign up, you're not allowed to use the restroom unless you buy something. I mean, that's not a friendly greeting. And I know for a fact I've got a store within about 12 to 15 miles of my house that has one of those signs. And my wife, traveling, had a bad experience, had to use the restroom, had been on the road an hour, went in there, gets hit with that sign, never been back and won't go back. I mean, it does not create a friendly environment or atmosphere at all. So in that instance, they didn't even have to talk. All they did was put a sign up.
Yeah. John, how many times have you been inside of a store where you're in there and because you're like me, you're walking around, checking the store out, checking their sets out, and the person's not only are they not friendly to you, they're watching you like you're trying to rob them.
Oh, yeah. I had a guy almost follow me into the bathroom last week.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, when I shut the door, I looked back, the guy's standing there looking at me. Which, I'm in the C-store industry, I'm a pretty bold person. I opened the door and actually said, hey, can I help you? So I'm going to talk to him, but up until that point, it was that weird, eerie feeling. It's almost like they're creeping you or something. Their eyes are on you. It's like, hey, where are you going to buy something and give me some value for me having this convenience store? And it's the total opposite effect of what you want.
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine like a store at a mall, right? Any other industry, people browse. And what do they do? They say, can I help you find something? Like they're friendly to you, right? Someone approaches you. That hasn't translated so much into convenience. I don't know if our industry has some cultural issues with that. And surely we have some people that come into our stores and, do things that, no one wishes they would do. But that's the type of customer you're attracting if that's how you're treating your customers that way, right? So it's a kind of a catch-22. Treat your customers nicer, and you'll probably get a higher qualified customer walking in the door. And it seems like these stores, like there's a stereotype to this store, right? It's easy to see it. It sticks out like a sore thumb. When we're driving up and down the road. And that's why your book's so funny because it's also cohesive. You can just kind of stereotype if these people have this, then they probably also have this, and that would be not a good coffee program, right?
Yep.
So let's talk about the importance of coffee.
I am an avid coffee drinker. I've already had 2 cups this morning. I'm going to have an afternoon cup somewhere between 12 and 1. It's just what I do. So as a coffee customer to a lot of these C-stores, there are, I would say, 50 to 70% of C-stores out there that really haven't decided they want to do coffee. They're just in it. And it's one of the most profitable categories in the business, if you do it right, especially. And, I talk a lot about coffee and food service because of the profitability, but there's also the aspect of creating loyal customers. So if you do it right, it won't only raise your profitability, but it helps you create loyal customers so that they keep coming back. That profitability can go up. I mean, coffee is where it's at. Starbucks sells coffee every single day, $4, $5, $6, $7. They're usually really busy. That tells you it's a product that the market wants. So that's a lot of my opinion on that has been developed because I have tried to help C-store owners get into the coffee business stronger. Partly so I'll buy a cup of coffee from them as I travel around. Like, you go in and you see one coffee pot and a 3-head cappuccino machine that's probably dirty. They think they gotta have coffee. They know they probably need it, but they've not really decided, I want to sell 100 cups a day or I want to sell 200 cups a day. I want to have it just maybe some people will come in. And there's a big difference between having something and investing in it as part of your business.
That's right. And food service would certainly fall, kind of the same conversation, right? And that's right in your wheelhouse. So, we even talked about, or in your book, you talk about, fronting, on the shelves. You talk about in food service, not just having 2 hot dogs on the roller grill, because of the way our minds think, especially here in the States, where if there's 2 there, people think that they're old. Right. So talk to us a little bit more about your company, John. Surely use it as a plug and the importance of food service.
So I've been a food service director for several years. I've trained some food service directors. So since about 2012, I had done nothing but really focus on food. If you pay attention to this industry, if you're reading convenience store news, CSP, the stuff that I'm sharing, I'm sure the stuff you guys are going to share as well, every new C-store that's being built right now has a huge focus on food service. I mean, I'm even seeing some guys building some C-stores that aren't necessarily knowing what they're doing. They're still putting kitchens in and trying to put delis in. And as a company, we want to help those people make money. That's what it's about, make money. But on the back side of that, even as a food, that positions us, in the food service side of it as their go-to person to show them, hey, you're not gonna eat this, but if you'll cook it like this, your customers will buy it. It puts a quality product out. So, working for PFS Brands has literally been, my favorite career move ever. And again, that goes back to the culture. I actually did a culture index review when I got hired. Before I got interviewed, they did like almost a psychological analysis on me to make sure that I fit into their culture. And that's actually something I'm going to talk about in the new book that I'm writing as well for these C-stores. But if you don't pay attention to the marketplace, if you don't talk to your customers, if you don't get into food service, at the end of the day, it's only a matter of time before you get eat up by one of the stores that do. And they're going to take your customers, they're going to build across the road from you, and it's a matter of time. So, not trying to be morbid or anything about the future of their business, but it's the way of the industry. And if you don't get on board, you'll get left behind very quickly.
That's right. We were talking about this morning, of course, and some of PFS Brands' food concepts, and I've seen almost all of them inside of stores at some point. Champ's Chicken has quite a few locations around us, but Blue Taco and Hot Mex Express, we love Mexican food, but I asked Cassidy and Layla, I said, hey, would you guys eat Mexican food from a convenience store? And right away, what did you say?
No.
Yeah.
I said no.
And but John, what was awesome is I followed it up with, I said, would you eat it from Wawa?
100%, yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
So that's just the type of feeling everyone has about food. Layla said she would do it from Pittsburgh. She said Sheets or Gecko. It's just that's the nature of what we're getting around here. And for the business, the stores who aren't willing to invest, I kind of, as morbid as it sounds, I want them to close because we need to raise the perception of the convenience store. That helps keep us all in business, right?
Yeah.
So.
And we do qualify accounts, so I agree with what she said. You wouldn't just want to see Mexican food anywhere. I actually had a guy call me the other day, wanted to look at our Hot Mex program. I went and visited the store, checked out the area, called him up and said, this is not the right location for it. Here's what you should do. Got to give some other advice. It's not for everybody, and we're seeing a lot of that same opinion out there in the marketplace. Chinese food is starting to make a run in the convenience store industry. There's some distributors picking that up. I've got a customer that actually is of Asian descent. He's a potential customer, actually. He's talking about possibly putting some Chinese food in this new store he's building. So there are some concepts coming in, and I agree with you 100%. We've got to raise the perception of the convenience store food service level so that customers see them also like a QSR. Hey, I can go there and do everything at once, and I can get good quality food.
Yeah, I think we're all used to buying our Chinese food or Asian food, sometimes from some places that are a bit questionable. That's where it usually tastes the best. And once they get shut down, typically we're like, yeah, that's not really surprising.
I think same thing with convenience stores.
Yeah.
One closed. It's been open for a while. You're like, oh, not surprised.
Yeah. That's probably the one. We can call it a QSR really, because every time you call and order food, they're like, yeah, 15 minutes. Like, oh, okay. No matter how much you ordered, but but that's probably the one that's most comparable as far as quality standards of people's perception. John, I do think that food service is so important and the future of our business. And if you're not in it, you're gonna probably end up going out of business. And because as convenience stores just continue to move forward and technologies change, we get into more fuel efficient cars, tobacco being down, carbonated beverages being down. Is there anything you want to plug? How can people find you? How can they have conversations with you and reach out to you?
So I'm pretty much on every platform that you can think of. I'm even on Parler, even though it's been shut down. But if you get on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and you search either John McMillin or you search CSTORE Secrets, you're going to find me. I do have a Facebook group you talked about earlier. If you go to thecstoresecrets.com/Facebook, you can get into that group. You can start communicating with me. The book is available on CSTORESecretsbook.com. That's another way to connect with me, because when you do buy the book, I do reach out through email and start the conversations.
We enjoy watching you, and I'm sure we'll be in touch more.
All right, I appreciate it. It's been fun.
All right, buddy. We'll see you.
Thank you. Bye.
That was a great interview, a great conversation with John. John, thank you for your time and all the insight. If you guys also enjoyed it, just give us a like. Also, if you think there's somebody else that we should interview and you want to nominate them, go ahead and say it in the comments of who you think we should interview next. Thank you all, and we'll see you next time.
How did you start today? In today's video, we're talking to John McMillin. Okay. Sorry. I'm sorry.
What are you doing with your face?
You're looking at me.
I'll look this way.
Don't look at her.
You got something to say? What the heck?
Sorry.
Oh my God. That was nice.